Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything, and I am coming back at you with another wargaming and miniature video. In this video, we're going to explore making flexible roads. This is going to be a two-part series. I'm going to do roads and rivers. In this first part, we're going to do roads, and in the second part, we're going to do rivers, and they're going to be flexible. Okay, so we're going to start off by using this. This is a self-adhesive magnet sheet. I actually was able to find a pack of 15 sheets for like $15 or something like that. So it actually comes out to about $1 a sheet. Okay, so taken out of its own little package, throw it away. Now this is going to be a specialty road that I'm going to need specifically at Waterloo. So what I'm doing is where Halkett, Kilmansegg, Maitland were on the high ground, taking cover behind the road. Off to the right of the road is the Wellington tree and the Wellington intersection. This is a road that is going to do like an S shape down to Bing, where there's a another intersection. This is all behind Huguemont. Okay. Now, you have to decide how big of a road, how thick or wide or narrow. This is an 8 by 10 sheet. I'm going to need a road that goes up, and then I'm going to need another road that goes down, right? And it's going to be an S shape. I'm going to be able to make both of those on this sheet, and I'll show you how I do that. Now, there's going to be some wastage on this sheet, but normally the way I make roads with these sheets, I get 4 10-inch roads out of one sheet. Like what I've decided was I'm going to cut my road base. This is the base of the road. I'm going to cut it at 50 millimeters, okay, or 5 centimeters. And that's going to be the total width of the base. And then I'm going to make my road on the inside of that probably about 30 to 40 millimeters, leaving maybe a half a centimeter or 5 millimeters on each side, something like that. Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. Roads are not supposed to be perfect. Okay, so we're going to start by getting a pen. Okay, now this right here is a peel and stick back, and this is the magnet side, obviously. But I'm going to draw on the peel and stick back. Okay. Now the road will end here. Now I don't really have to measure. I could use the squares on my table, or if you want to use a ruler, you can use your ruler. There's 50 millimeters. All right, so basically what I did was, as you can see, I marked 50 millimeters here, because this is the part of the road that's going to connect to the intersection. And then it's going to come over here, and it's going to go off the top of the page. right? For 50 millimeters. Okay, so imagine the road going up, and then I'm going to cut another 50 millimeters here where this will match up with that. So imagine it flipped over, and so that road is going to curve up, and then it's going to curve out, and then this is going to be in the direction of the road intersection. Okay. Okay, I'm glad I measured it. Remember what they say, measure twice, cut once. I had only made that 40 millimeters. That needs to be 50. 50, 50, 50. The angle of this road actually needs to be at this angle here. Okay, so far so good, right? All right, so now I'm kind of freeballing. I'm kind of free, what do you call it? Every few inches, I'm gonna measure 50 millimeters so that I don't draw the road too skinny. As I go along. And it's okay to be a little bit off. This is my personal project, so I can do what I want, right? Okay. But we want it, I want it to be pretty perfect. Because that's the way, I like it. Okay, so I've got a pretty good idea there, and a pretty good idea there. Okay. It doesn't have to be exact, remember, because it's just a terrain piece. It's a road, you know. It can be thinner, it can be longer, it can be whatever you want it to be. Okay. So now I'm going to kind of do the same thing for this inner road. And since I'm following the same line, that I'm going to cut for the other road, it's going to be basically one cut for two roads. All right. So far so good. The optical illusion makes this one look smaller. All right, now I just taken a simple X-Acto knife and cutting into the magnet. Okay, and I only used a straight edge on this one because I wanted a straight edge. The rest is just going to be curved, and so I can just freehand it. Now I've got a pretty good amount of pressure on this because I am trying to cut through the plastic backing and the magnet underneath. And as you see, it cuts. Okay, this will actually work well for all of those. Now, if you previously watched any of my other videos, you would have seen me make some rigid roads and rivers. And basically I'm showing both strategies, both tactics, or whatever you would call it, both techniques, so that you can make an educated decision on which one you want to do. Okay, now these can be simple things like river turns or road turns as well if you wanted to save these, which I do. I am saving them. Plus, you can always peel and stick these in the bottom of your movement trays, or even on the bottom of your storage trays. And then when you put your armies, as long as they've got metal bases or as long as they've got magnetic bases, they won't move around inside your movement tray or your transport tray. Okay, so that's how you cut them out. All right, so there's a couple of tools that you're going to need. First of all, I put wax paper down. The one reason why I put wax paper down is I'm getting ready to work with some acrylic latex caulk. It's a silicone. It says you can paint it in 20 minutes. I personally love this stuff right here. DAP is one of my favorite companies when it comes to building materials. Now you can see here that I've got a straightaway. I cut this one out earlier that I wanted to use as my demo piece. And then these would, match up with, depending on how you lay them out. Because I measured them at 50 millimeters, they should all come out pretty even. This is probably the longest one I've done, just because it went from corner to corner. We're going to do all these, but really my demo piece is going to be this straightaway. I got a little bit of water here in a bowl. That's for when I start using my Mark 1 and Mark 2 applicators. We're going to set these off to the side. I am going to do these off camera. All right, so this is a little trick that I learned. I'm going to take one of my extra sheets that I've got. I'm going to put it under my wax paper so that when I lay this down, it'll actually stick and it doesn't want to move. Okay, and I have to peel it off. So you just peel the backing off. Okay, there we go. We peel the backing off. Now this, is adhesive, right? It's got a little bit of an adhesive there. My understanding is this was originally designed for photographs, like you would put a photograph on one of these sheets and then you could put it up on your refrigerator or what have you. So I'm going to take my Alex here, and we're not going to put a whole lot. You can see about how much I've put. And then seal that back up. Now I'm gonna use my Mark 1 and Mark 2 applicator, and I'm gonna wet it down, right, so that it doesn't stick to the Alex. You can see how it's kind of moving around, and you can see it's probably a little wet there. That's all right. Just spread it around. Like Harkin says in Mass Effect, it's a lot like herpes. If you got them, you might as well spread them around. Sorry. I just thought that was funny. Okay. It's already fairly dry. So now, even in this wet part, you know, and I kind of just work it in. What I'm really kind of doing is working the water out of it. I might have had a little bit too much, especially on this end here. Okay. So now you can texture this any way you want. You can put like gravel on it. You can put sawdust or sand or anything like that. I think it's unnecessary to do that. In my opinion. So what I do now is I kind of use my finger to give the road a little bit of verticality texture, right? I'm not going around in circles. I'm going parallel with the road, as if because I'm making it kind of as a dirt road or what have you. So it's going to have wagon ruts, or if you wanted, like if you're making World War II roads, which this would work. This works for both World War II, ancients, medievals, whatever, sci-fi even. I don't feel it's necessary, but some people will take like track segments and they'll lay it down and pull it off, and it'll leave a track impression, a tank track that is, or they'll take a wagon wheel and they'll roll it across there so that you'll get like a deep wagon rut. I'm not making this deep. I'm making this very thin, very very shallow. I am allowing the outer edge to kind of remain thick, and I'm thinning out the inside part where the road is, where I want to keep the road. And really the Alex here is really just to allow paint to adhere to the magnet, as well as give it a little bit of texture. All right, perfect. And then what we'll do is we'll let that dry. I'm going to go clean my hands off, and I'll do those off camera at some other time. And yeah, now I've done more than one of these. I've done like a dozen plus of these, and I have some of them in various stages, and I'm just going to pull them out one at a time and show you each stage without having to wait for dry times. Okay, so let me clean my hands and I'll be right back. All right, we're back. This one is the one we just did. This is the one I did previously, and it has the Alex is dried. Now, because the Alex is also an acrylic latex silicone, it has flexibility and it won't crack. So, like a lot of people, like I did, like over like 2 years ago, I made an entire uh, battle map with just using acrylic latex. But as you can see, this is flexible and it's not really cracking or anything. That's just like that could be cleaned off with soap and water. But so there you go. This is the dry one. This is still wet. So then what I do is I take this and I'm going to take this outside and I'm going to spray it with a brown spray paint. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, so this is after I sprayed it with, I just sprayed it with simple Rust-Oleum flat enamel brown spray paint. That's pretty much all it is. And you can see the road texturing. I'm not sure if you can really see that very well. Trying to angle it a little bit so you can see it in the lighting. How it has some road texturing, but also some not so much road texturing. Okay. So now we're going to actually do something on camera here. I'm going to take this folk art rusted pipe. You could take any light brown, whatever you feel. It's a brown that contrasts. That's all you need. I considered, and you can consider how you want your battlefield to look, but I considered making this like a dark brown on the sides and then leaving it this brown in the middle, giving it your two-tone effect. But I thought that by putting rusted pipe along the center, it does two things. It gives me the road contrast. It also makes my road the color I want it to be, which is kind of a light tan. And then it also will allow me to put more streaks in the road. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm just painting along the center of this. Oh, and by the way, this is dry. And I'm doing it on top of the wax paper so that any over brushing like this or like this doesn't go on my table. It goes onto the wax paper. Okay, and that's about as thick as I want it on there. Now, I'm using kind of a really stiff bristle brush, kind of a wild bristle. This is a Transin art brush, but by stroking it lengthwise, parallel to the road, you're getting brush strokes, right? And those brush strokes are intentional because then it'll look like, well, first of all, the dark brown underneath shines through and it looks more like road ruts or ruts in the road or however you want to call it. Okay, so now I'm going to set this off to the side, let this dry. Once it's dry, I'm going to bring in a second sheet. Okay, so I got me a little box here to collect my flock, but this is the road so far, and you can see the brush strokes in the road. And again, it's still pretty flexible. Now you see there's a spot there on this one that I must have missed or didn't hit properly. Well, that's okay. I'm going to hit that with a little bit of flock and it'll fix that. All right, now for my flock, I'm going to use Elmer's, and what I use is maybe about 50-50 water to Elmer's mixture. What I'm also going to use is this. This is Knock static grass. It's 2.5 millimeters. Spring Meadow is the color. And that's the color we're going to be working with. Now, I found that 2.5 millimeters works really good with 15 millimeter models. 2 millimeter or even 1.5 works really good with you know, your 10 millimeter to 15 millimeter, but 2.5 is pretty good. And I'm aiming towards a 15 millimeter table. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to do one side at a time. Now I'm not knocking everything off. I'm just shaking off the excess, like the just anything that would naturally just fall off. But I want to leave the majority of the static grass on so that it'll soak into the Elmers. Now let's do the other side. Okay, we're going to sprinkle. And I keep sprinkling until all of the white from the Elmers is covered, or disguised, I should say, by the flock. Okay. We're going to let it fall off. Then I'm going to lay it down, and we're going to let that dry before I shake off any excess. All right, I'll be right back. All right, we're back with my flexible road. Now remember, this is made in a way that you can lay this on your table, and it should be able to adapt to whatever hills or whatever you've got. Now these are my 15 millimeter Romans based on a 40 millimeter frontage, and you can kind of see how they look on the road that I just made, you know. I think they look pretty good, you know. Yeah, I think the dark brown underneath the because remember, I lightened this up with a little bit of rusted pipe, so the edges remain dark brown. And with the spring meadow on top of that, it looks pretty good. I like the contrast. Now, I also got out my 25 or 28 millimeter Napoleonics as well. And it looks like those would work on that road system just well. And if I wanted to, I could make this a little bit wider if I wanted, or narrower if I used like 6 millimeter or 2 millimeter miniatures. So a pack of 15, which is what I got 15 magnet sheets, allowed me to cover my entire table with roads and rivers. And I still have like 4 or 5 sheets remaining. Yeah, so 40 millimeter frontage. This road is probably about a 30 or 35 millimeter, because remember, this whole thing is 50 millimeters wide. I think it looks good. What do you guys think? Now, remember, I haven't put any tufts or clump foliage on there. I might or might not do that. These should store pretty well wherever you want. Plus, if you wanted to, you could just stick this up on your refrigerator. No, I wouldn't do that. Something I thought about, now this is probably nothing, this is just an aside. I thought that if I had some sheet metal and I put that on my table, covered it with a blanket, when I laid these roads and rivers down, they would stick, magnetize to that sheet metal, and it would keep my blankets and my roads from moving. But that might be a little excessive. All right, guys. Remember to come back and check out the second part of this video, which is the rivers. And I will catch you in the next one.